The alarm rang through the deep space station at exactly 0347 hours. Lieutenant David Park jumped from his sleep pod and ran to the control room. His bare feet slapped against the cold metal floor as he moved through the narrow hallways of listening. "Post Alpha 7, what do we have?" he asked as he slid into his chair. The screens around him showed dozens of blinking lights and scrolling data streams. "Another system just went dark," said Sergeant Maria Santos from the communications desk. She pointed at a red dot on the star map. "That's the Vorthek home system, 3 billion warriors. Gone in 6 hours." David stared at the screen. 6 months ago, that red dot had been green. The Vorthak were known across the galaxy as the fiercest fighters anyone had ever seen. Their warriors trained from birth to die in battle. They had weapons that could crack planets and ships that moved faster than light itself. Now they were gone. "Same pattern as always," Maria continued. She pulled up the tactical reports on her screen. "The Skarn jump in with overwhelming force. They demand surrender. When the locals refuse, they start killing everything that moves. When the locals try to surrender, they kill everything anyway." David rubbed his tired eyes. He had been watching this war for 3 years now. 3 years of seeing entire civilizations wiped out like someone erasing marks on a board. The Skarn hegemony moved through space like a plague. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. "How many does that make now?" he asked. 47 star systems, Maria said quietly. "Maybe 400 billion people. All dead." The listening post was one of 12 hidden stations that Earth had built along the outer rim of the galaxy. They were small and hard to detect. Their job was simple: watch and listen. Earth wanted to know what was happening in the galaxy, but Earth did not want to be noticed. David walked to the main viewing screen. It showed a map of the entire galaxy. Green dots showed systems that were still free. Red dots showed systems that the Skarn had conquered. Yellow dots showed systems that were under attack. There were a lot more red dots than green ones. "Look at this," Maria said. She pointed to a cluster of yellow dots near the galactic core. "The Ethereal Confederacy is making their last stand, 20 systems. They're throwing everything they have at the Skarn." The Ethereals were old. Really old. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. They had technology that seemed like magic. Their ships could appear and disappear at will. Their weapons could reach across solar systems to strike targets. David watched the tactical display update in real time. The yellow dots were turning red one by one. "How long do you think they'll last?" he asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Maria said. "The Skarn don't care about technology. They just throw ships at the problem until it goes away." "They've got more ships than the Ethereals have bullets," David nodded. It was always the same story. The Skarn would show up with 1,000 ships. The enemy would destroy 900 of them. Then the Skarn would show up with 2,000 ships. Numbers always won in the end. His communicator beeped. Admiral Sarah Chun's face appeared on the small screen. She looked tired. She always looked tired these days. "Lieutenant Park, I need a full briefing ready in 2 hours, she said. "The council is meeting again." "Yes, ma'am," David replied. "Should I include the ethereal situation?" "Include everything," Chun said. "They want to know if we should start helping the survivors." The screen went dark. David looked at Maria. They both knew what that meant. Some people on Earth wanted to join the war. They thought humanity should help fight the Skarn. They thought it was the right thing to do. David was not sure it was the smart thing to do. He spent the next 2 hours putting together his report. The numbers were not good. The Skarn had started with maybe 50,000 ships. Now they had over 200,000. Every time they conquered a system, they took the ships and factories. They turned the conquered people into workers and soldiers. The free systems of the galaxy had started with millions of ships. Now they had maybe 50,000 left. Most of those were running away or hiding. "The Skarn are winning," David said, to the empty room. "They're not just winning. They're winning easy." He looked at the part of the map that showed human space. Earth and her colonies were far out on the rim of the galaxy. 47 systems with about 30 billion people. They had good technology and strong fleets, but they were small compared to the great powers or the great powers that used to exist. The strange thing was that the Skarn had never bothered with human space. Their fleets had passed near human systems many times. They could have attacked any time they wanted, but they always went somewhere else. David pulled up the intelligence files on Skarn behavior. They seemed to target the richest and most powerful systems first. They wanted the biggest prizes. Places with the most people, the most resources, the most advanced technology. Maybe they thought human space was not worth the trouble. David finished his report and sent it to Admiral Chun. Then he went to get some coffee from the small kitchen. The listening post only had 12 people on it. They worked in shifts, watching the galaxy burn. When he came back, Maria was staring at her screen with a strange look on her face. "What is it?" he asked. "New intelligence from the inner systems?" She said, "It's about how the Skarn picked their targets." She put the report on the main screen. It was from a group of refugees who had escaped from a conquered system. They had been prisoners on a Skarn ship for months before they managed to get away. "Look at this part," Maria said. She highlighted a section of text. They said the Skarn have a list, a target list. It ranks every system in the galaxy by value. David read the report carefully. According to the refugees, the Skarn used a complex formula to decide which systems to attack. They looked at population, resources, technology, and military strength. They started with the highest value targets and worked their way down. "Where do you think human systems rank on that list?" Maria asked. David thought about it. Earth had decent technology, but nothing special compared to the Ethereals or the Vorthak. They had good resources, but many systems had better ones. They had about 30 billion people, which was a lot, but some systems had 10 times that many. "Pretty low," he said finally. "We're probably not even in the top 100. "That's what I was thinking too," Maria said. "We're too small to bother with. At least for now." But David knew that would not last forever. The Skarn were working their way through the list. Eventually they would get to the bottom. Eventually they would come for Earth. He was still thinking about that when his communicator beeped again. This time it was a priority message from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Chin's face appeared, but she was not alone. Behind her, David could see other officers and civilians. It looked like they were in the main briefing room. "All listening posts, this is Admiral Chun," she said. "We have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected a large Skarn fleet moving toward the outer rim. We're not sure of their destination, but they're headed in our general direction." David felt his stomach drop. "How large is large?" he asked. 300 ships, Chun replied. "Including some of their biggest dreadnoughts? This is not a raiding party. This is a conquest fleet." Maria was already pulling up the sensor data on her screen. The Skarn fleet was still 2 weeks away from the nearest human system, but they were definitely heading toward human space. "What are your orders, ma'am?" David asked. "Keep watching," Chun said. "I want to know everything about that fleet. Where they're going, what they're planning, how they're organized." "Everything? And if they're coming for us?" David asked. Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. Behind her, the other officers looked grim. "Then we'll be ready," she said finally. "Earth has not survived this long by giving up when things get difficult." The communication ended. David and Maria looked at each other. They both knew what this meant. The war that had been raging across the galaxy for 3 years was finally coming to Earth. David went back to his station and started tracking the Skarn fleet. The ships were moving fast, faster than most species could manage. They would be at the edge of human space in 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get ready for a war that had already killed 400 billion people. As he worked, David thought about all the reports he had filed over the past 3 years. All the battles he had watched. All the civilizations he had seen die. The Skarn always won because they had more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. But David had also noticed something else in those reports. Something that might be important. The Skarn always fought the same way. They jumped in with overwhelming force. They demanded surrender. They destroyed anyone who resisted. It was simple and effective, but it was also predictable. David pulled up the tactical files from the last 50 Skarn victories. He studied their patterns, their formations, their strategies. They did the same thing every time because it always worked. Maybe that was their weakness. He started a new file on his computer. At the top he wrote, Skarn Tactical Analysis, Potential Vulnerabilities. 2 weeks was not much time, but David had spent 3 years watching the Skarn fight. He knew how they thought, he knew how they moved, and maybe, just maybe, he knew how to beat them. Outside the listening post, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere among them, a Skarn fleet was moving toward Earth. They thought they were coming to conquer another weak species. They had no idea what they were walking into. Captain Marcus Rodriguez was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He dropped the cup and ran to the bridge of the UES Defiant. Coffee splashed across the floor as his boots pounded on the metal deck. "Report," he shouted, as he jumped into his captain's chair. "Sir, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system," said Lieutenant Commander Jessica Walsh from the sensor station. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the fear. "Underneath. They're big, sir, really big." Marcus looked at the main screen. 3 massive shapes were appearing as the sensors painted their outlines. Each one was the size of a small moon. Around them, smaller ships were emerging from hyperspace like angry insects. "How many ships total?" Marcus asked. "Still counting." "Sir," Walsh replied, "at least 200, maybe more." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. The Defiant was a good ship, one of Earth's newest destroyers, but it was alone out here on patrol duty. The rest of the fleet was scattered across 47 star systems. "Are they Skarn?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yes, sir. The ship profiles match our intelligence files perfectly." Marcus stared at the screen. For 3 years, the Skarn had ignored human space. They had been too busy conquering the great powers of the galaxy to bother with Earth's small colonies. But now they were here. "Communications. Get me a channel to Earth Defense Command," Marcus ordered. "Priority Alpha." "Working on it, sir," said Ensign Tommy Park from the communications station. "But sir, the Skarn are jamming most frequencies." "It might take a while." "Keep trying," Marcus said. He turned to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Torres, what's our tactical situation?" "Not good, sir," Torres replied. "We've got 24 plasma torpedoes, full ammunition for our railguns, and our defensive systems are at 100%. "But sir, those dreadnoughts—" "Have enough firepower to crack a planet," Marcus nodded. He had read the intelligence reports. Skarn dreadnoughts carried weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. The smaller ships were armed with plasma cannons that could melt through the strongest armor. The Defiant had good shields and decent weapons, but it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. "Sir, incoming transmission," Ensign Park announced. "It's from the lead Skarn ship." "Put it on screen," Marcus said. The view screen flickered and then showed the bridge of the alien ship. The creature sitting in the command chair was huge, at least 8 feet tall. Its skin was dark gray and covered with scales. Its eyes were yellow and seemed to glow in the dim light of its bridge when it spoke. The translation system turned its growls and hisses into words that Marcus could understand. "Primitive mammals," the alien said. Its voice was deep and rough. "I am War Master Thecalon of the Skarn hegemony. Your species will serve us now. You will surrender your military ships for destruction. Your people will be moved to work camps. If you obey, some of you will live." Marcus looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at the screen with a mixture of fear and anger. These aliens had just told them that humanity was now property of the Skarn Empire. Marcus stood up slowly. He straightened his uniform and looked directly into the alien's yellow eyes. "This is Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Coalition," he said in a clear, steady voice. "You have entered sovereign human space without permission. You have threatened the lives of human citizens. Under the laws of the Terran Defense Coalition, this is an act of war. The alien's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. Marcus could hear what sounded like laughter coming from the other creatures on the bridge. "You think your tiny ship can fight us?" Decalon said. "We have conquered species with fleets 1,000 times larger than yours. We have destroyed civilizations that ruled the galaxy for millions of years. What makes you think primitive mammals from a rim world can stand against us?" Marcus smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Because we're humans," he said simply. "And humans don't give up." He turned to his communications officer. "Ensign Park, are you recording this?" "Yes, sir," Park replied. "Good. Broadcast this on all frequencies. Make sure every human ship and every human colony hears it." Marcus turned back to the screen. "War Master Decalon, you have exactly 1 hour to withdraw your forces from human space. If you refuse, we will consider your presence an act of war and respond accordingly." The laughter from the alien bridge got louder. Decalon leaned forward in his chair. "1 human ship against 200 Skarn vessels," he said. "You are either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Marcus replied, "but you still have 59 minutes to leave." He cut the transmission. The bridge was quiet for a moment. "Sir," Lieutenant Torres said carefully, "what exactly is our plan here?" Marcus looked at his tactical display. The Skarn fleet was spreading out, surrounding the Defiant. Soon they would be in weapons range. "Our plan is to buy time," Marcus said. "Earth needs to know what's happening here. The fleet needs time to respond. And the Skarn need to learn that humans are not as easy to conquer as they think." "Sir, incoming message from Earth Defense Command," Ensign Park announced. Admiral Sarah Chun's face appeared on a smaller screen. She looked tired and worried. "Marcus, we received your transmission," she said. "Fleet Command is scrambling every available ship, but it will be at least 6 hours before we can get reinforcements to your position." "Understood, Admiral," Marcus replied. "We'll hold them as long as we can." "Marcus," Chun said quietly, "you don't have to do this. You could withdraw, live to fight another day." Marcus looked around his bridge again. His crew was watching him, waiting for his decision. They all knew the odds. They all knew they probably would not survive the next few hours. "With respect, Admiral, yes we do," Marcus said. "If we run now, the Skarn will think all humans are cowards. They'll think we're easy targets. Someone has to show them they're wrong." Chun nodded slowly. "Good luck, Captain." The transmission ended. Marcus turned to his crew. "All right, people, you heard the Admiral. We need to hold this position for 6 hours. I know the odds aren't good. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle to the nearest colony." No questions asked. Nobody moved. Lieutenant Commander Walsh spoke for all of them. "Sir, we're not going anywhere." Marcus felt a surge of pride. This was why he loved serving with humans. When things got impossible, they got stubborn. "Very well," he said. "Let's show these aliens what humans can do. All stations, battle alert. Charge all weapons and prepare for combat." The bridge lights dimmed to red as the ship's systems switched to combat mode. Marcus could feel the vibration of the engines as they powered up to full capacity. "Sir, the Skarn are moving," Walsh reported. 12 ships breaking off from the main fleet. "Looks like they're coming to capture us." Marcus studied the tactical display. The Skarn were being careful. They were not sending their whole fleet against one small ship. They were probably planning to disable the Defiant and take prisoners for questioning. That was their first mistake. "Weapons range in 30 seconds, Torres announced. "Wait for it," Marcus said. "Let them get closer." The Skarn ships were huge compared to the Defiant. Each one could probably destroy the human ship with a few shots. But they were also slow and clumsy. The Defiant was fast and maneuverable. 20 seconds to weapons range, Torres said. Marcus watched the enemy ships approaching. They were flying in a standard attack formation, just like the intelligence reports had predicted. The Skarn always used the same tactics because they always worked. 10 seconds. "All right, people, here we go," Marcus said. "Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to survive it. Torres, target their engines. Walsh, be ready to jump to hyperspace if things get too hot. Weapons range, Torres announced. Fire, Marcus ordered, the Defiant's rail. Guns opened up, sending streams of metal projectiles at the lead Skarn ship. At the same time, Torres launched two plasma torpedoes. The Skarn had expected the plasma torpedoes. Their shields absorbed the energy weapons easily, but they had not expected the rail guns. The metal projectiles punched through their shields like they were not even there. Direct hits on the lead ship, Torres reported with excitement. Their engines are damaged. Evasive maneuvers, Marcus ordered. Don't let them lock onto us. The Defiant twisted and turned as the Skarn ships fired back. Plasma bolts flew past the small human ship, missing by meters. Walsh was flying like her life depended on it, which it did. Their weapons can't track. US, Walsh said. We're too fast for their targeting systems. Marcus smiled. That was the second mistake the Skarn had made. They were used to fighting other large, slow ships. They had never faced something as small and quick as a human destroyer. Keep moving and keep firing, Marcus ordered. Hit and run tactics? Don't give them a chance to get a lock on us. For the next 20 minutes, the Defiant danced around the Skarn ships like a mosquito buzzing around sleeping giants. The human ship's railguns kept finding weak spots in the alien shields. Two of the Skarn ships were badly damaged and falling behind, but Marcus knew it could not last. The Skarn were learning. They were changing their tactics, trying to box the Defiant in. Sir, more ships coming, Walsh reported. Looks like they're sending the whole fleet after us now. Marcus looked at the tactical display. Over 200 enemy ships were closing in on his position. Even with the Defiant's speed, there was no way to avoid them all. Sir, incoming transmission from the Skarn flagship, Ensign Park announced. Put it through, Marcus said. War Master Thekgalan appeared on the screen again. This time he did not look amused. He looked angry. Enough games, human, he snarled. Surrender now or we will destroy you. Marcus looked at his chronometer. They had held the Skarn for almost an hour. Every minute they fought was another minute for Earth to prepare. Sorry, but humans don't surrender, Marcus said, especially not to bullies. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All right, people, they're bringing everything they have. Time for Plan B? What's Plan B, sir? Torres asked. Marcus grinned. We're going to ram them. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Lieutenant Commander Walsh laughed. Sir, that's completely insane, she said. Yes, it is, Marcus agreed. But it's also the last thing they'll expect. Torres, overload the reactor. Walsh, plot a course for the flagship, full speed. The Defiant turned toward the massive Skarn dreadnought. The ship's reactor began building to dangerous levels as Marcus prepared for a suicide run, but then something unexpected happened. New contacts appeared on the sensors. Ships dropping out of hyperspace behind the Skarn fleet, human ships. Sir, it's the cavalry, Walsh said with excitement. The entire Third Fleet just arrived? Marcus looked at the display. 40 human warships had just jumped into the system. They were outnumbered 5-1, but they were no longer alone. Admiral Chun's voice came over the communications system, broadcasting to both fleets. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Coalition. Skarn vessels, you are in violation of human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. War Master Thekgalan's response was broadcast on all frequencies. Your pathetic fleet cannot stop us, human. We have conquered species far more advanced than yours. Maybe, Chun replied calmly. But those species never had to fight humans before. You're about to learn why that matters. The space battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. The humans were outnumbered, but they fought with a desperate creativity that the Skarn had never encountered. Ships rammed each other at light speed. Fighters carried nuclear weapons on suicide runs. Every human vessel seemed to have weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Marcus watched from the bridge of the Defiant as the battle raged around him. The Skarn were learning that humans were not like the other species they had conquered. Humans did not fight fair. They did not follow the rules of galactic warfare. They fought to win, no matter what it cost. The battle lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, half the Skarn fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors retreated to the edge of the system, licking their wounds, but Marcus knew this was just the beginning. The Skarn had learned that humans would fight. Now they would. Come back with everything they had. The real war was about to begin. Warmaster Thekalon stared at the tactical display on his command ship. Red markers showed where 23 of his vessels had been destroyed. Yellow markers showed another 15 ships that were too damaged to fight. In 6 hours, the humans had cost him almost a fifth of his fleet. This was not supposed to happen. The humans had only 40 ships. His fleet had over 200. The mathematics should have been simple. Superior numbers always won. It was the first law of galactic warfare, but somehow the humans had made the mathematics lie. War Master, his tactical officer said carefully, the humans are regrouping near their home planet. Should we pursue them? Thekalon considered his options. His fleet was still larger than the human force. He could probably win a direct assault, but the cost would be high. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen before. No, he said finally. We will study them first, learn their weaknesses, then we will crush them properly. He had conquered 47 species in his career. Each one had fought differently, but they all followed the same basic patterns. They had honor codes. They had rules of war. They fought in formations and used standard tactics. The humans seemed to have no rules at all during the battle. He had watched a human destroyer ram one of his cruisers at near light speed. The human ship was destroyed instantly, but it took the cruiser with it. No species he knew would sacrifice a valuable warship like that. He had seen human fighters load themselves with nuclear weapons and fly directly into his dreadnoughts. The pilots had to know they would die, but they did it anyway. The explosions had damaged 3 of his best ships, most disturbing of all. The humans had weapons that should not have existed. Kinetic projectiles that punched through energy shields. Gravity bombs that collapsed space around his ships. Electronic warfare systems that turned his own computers against him. Prepare the landing forces, Thekalon ordered. We will take their planet the traditional way. Once we control their homeworld, the rest will surrender. His aide looked uncertain. Sir, the humans seem very aggressive. Perhaps we should wait for reinforcements. Thekalon's eyes flashed with anger. Are you questioning my judgment? No. Sir, the aide said quickly, I just thought. You are not paid to think, Thekalon snarled. You are paid to obey. Prepare the landing forces. We attack at dawn. 3 hours later, the first wave of Skarn troop transports began their descent. Toward Earth, Thekalon had chosen to land near the human capital cities. Once he controlled their governments, the rest of the planet would fall in line. It was a strategy that had worked on dozens of worlds. The first sign that something was wrong came when the lead transport exploded. What happened? Thekalon demanded. From his command ship in orbit? Unknown, sir, his communications officer replied. The transport just exploded. No warning. No enemy fire detected. Technical malfunction, Thekalon decided. Continue the landing. The second transport made it closer to the ground before it died. This time the sensors detected the cause. A missile had come from somewhere in the city below, but the missile was tiny, too small for their sensors to track properly. Sir, the humans are using some kind of stealth weapons, the tactical officer reported. Our shields are not stopping them. Impossible, Thekalon said. Our shields can stop plasma cannons. They can deflect particle beams. What kind of primitive weapon could penetrate them? It appears to be kinetic, sir, the officer said nervously. Just a piece of metal moving very fast. But it's moving so fast that it goes right through our shields like they're not there, Thekalon frowned. Energy shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They were not very good at stopping solid objects. But no civilized species used kinetic weapons anymore. They were primitive and inefficient, unless apparently you wanted to kill something that had energy shields. Deploy the fighters, he ordered. Clear the airspace around the landing zones. The Skarn fighters were fast and deadly. They could destroy any aircraft the humans might send against them. But when they reached the cities, they found no human aircraft waiting for them. Instead, they found humans with shoulder-mounted weapons. The missiles that rose from the city streets were small and primitive-looking, but they moved faster than the Skarn fighters could dodge. And they hit hard enough to bring down ships that could survive space combat? "Sir, we're losing fighters," the air commander reported. "The humans have anti-aircraft weapons positioned all over their cities. How many fighters have we lost?" Vekalon asked. 60% of the first wave, sir." Vekalon stared at the tactical display. His fighters were being shot down by ground troops with portable weapons. It should have been impossible. Fighter aircraft were supposed to dominate ground forces, but the humans had turned that rule upside down too. "Send in the ground troops," he ordered. "Heavy armor, full shields. Crush any resistance." The Skarn army that landed on Earth was impressive. 10,000 soldiers in powered armor, tanks that could level buildings, weapons that could melt through any material known to galactic science. They landed in Central Park in the middle of New York City. The plan was simple: secure the landing zone, then advance on the government buildings. Take the human leaders prisoner and force them to surrender. The humans had other ideas. The first wave of Skarn troops advanced down Fifth Avenue in perfect formation. Their armor was proof against any weapon the humans were supposed to have. Their shields could stop plasma fire and particle beams. They could not stop a human sniper with an old-fashioned rifle. The bullet that killed the first Skarn soldier was made of depleted uranium. It was fired from a building half a mile away by a woman who had learned to shoot hunting deer in the mountains of Colorado. The bullet punched through the aliens' shields and armor like they were made of paper. The Skarn formation stopped, confused. Their sensors had detected the shot, but they could not understand how such a primitive weapon had penetrated their defenses. The second shot came from a different building, then a third from another direction, then dozens of shots from all around. "We're under attack," the ground commander reported to the command ship. "But sir, we can't locate the enemy positions. They're firing from everywhere." "Use the sensors," Vekalon ordered. "Track the weapon signatures." "Sir, the weapons don't have signatures, they're just chemical explosions. Our sensors are designed to detect energy weapons." Vekalon felt a chill run down his spine. The humans were using gunpowder weapons. Actual gunpowder, technology that was thousands of years old. Technology that was so primitive that modern sensors barely noticed it. Technology that worked. "Return fire," he ordered. "Level the buildings they're hiding in." The Skarn soldiers began firing their plasma weapons at the surrounding buildings. Glass melted and steel beams glowed red-hot, but the human snipers had already moved to new positions. As the Skarn advanced deeper into the city, the attacks got worse. Explosions erupted from manholes in the street. Buildings collapsed as hidden charges detonated. Vehicles exploded as human fighters emerged from sewers and subway tunnels. The humans were not fighting like a proper army. They had no formations, no command structure that the Skarn could detect. They seemed to be operating in small groups, each one independent and unpredictable. "Sir, we need reinforcements," the ground commander reported. His voice was strained. "The enemy is everywhere." "We can't advance?" "How many troops have you lost?" Vekalon asked. 2,000 dead, sir. Another 1,000 wounded. "And sir, the humans are taking our weapons." "What?" "When our soldiers fall, the humans take their weapons and armor. They're using our own technology against us." Vekalon closed his eyes. This was getting worse by the minute. Not only were the humans fighting with primitive weapons that his technology could not counter, they were also adapting his advanced weapons for their own use. He had never seen anything like it. "Pull back to the landing zone," he ordered. "Defensive positions. We'll call down orbital bombardment." But even that did not work the way it was supposed to. When the Skarn troops tried to retreat, they found that the humans had blocked their escape routes. Streets were filled with debris. Bridges had been destroyed. The paths they had used to advance into the city were now death traps. The humans had planned for this. They had prepared their city to become a maze that would trap any invading force. As night fell, the situation got even worse. The Skarn had excellent night vision technology, but the humans seemed to know exactly where they were at all times. Human fighters appeared out of nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before the Skarn could respond. "Sir, the humans are using our own communication frequencies," the signals officer reported. "They're listening to everything we say. How is that possible?" Vekilon demanded. "Unknown, sir. But they seem to have cracked our encryption codes. They know where we are and what we're planning before we do it." Vekilon felt panic starting to build in his chest. Nothing was working the way it should. The humans were not following any of the rules of warfare that had served him well for decades. Worse, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. His scouts reported that human civilians were helping the soldiers. Old men were building bombs in their basements. Children were running messages between fighter groups. Women were treating wounded soldiers and sending them back into battle. The entire population was at war. "Sir, message from General Harrison, Clark of the Human Defense Forces," the communications officer announced. "Put him through," Vekilon said. An elderly human appeared on the screen. He was sitting in what looked like a simple office. There were no weapons visible, no signs of military power. Just an old man in a plain uniform? "War Master Vekilon," the human said calmly. "I'm calling to discuss terms." "Terms?" Vekilon laughed bitterly. "You are surrounded. Your city is under attack. Your planet is mine. What terms could you possibly offer?" "Actually," the human said with a slight smile, "I was going to offer you terms for your surrender." The audacity was breathtaking. The human general was sitting on a planet under invasion, with enemy troops in his capital city, and he was offering terms to the invaders. "You're insane," Vekilon said. "Maybe," General Clark replied, "but I'm also winning." "Would you like to know why?" Despite himself, Vekilon was curious. "Tell me." "Because you've never fought humans before," Clark said simply. "You've fought civilized species. Species that follow rules. Species that fight wars the way you expect them to." The general leaned forward in his chair. "But humans aren't civilized, War Master. Not the way you understand civilization. We've been fighting wars for our entire history. We've fought each other, our environment, and extinction itself. We've had to learn to survive when everything was against us." "What's your point?" Vekilon asked. "My point is that while you were conquering the galaxy by being the most efficient killers, we were learning to be the most stubborn survivors. And there's a big difference between those two things." General Clark stood up and walked to a window. Behind him, Vekilon could see explosions lighting up the night sky. "Your troops are trapped in our city," Clark continued. "They're outnumbered 50 to 1 by people who know every street, every building, every hiding place. Your ships in orbit can't help them without destroying the city and killing their own soldiers." "I can accept that cost," Vekilon said. "Can you?" Clark asked. "Because if you destroy our cities, you get nothing. No workers, no resources, no technology, just ruins. And we have 46 other worlds, each one ready to fight you the same way?" Vekilon felt the trap closing around him. If he destroyed Earth, he would gain nothing but revenge. If he tried to conquer it intact, he would lose most of his army in the process. "Here's what's going to happen," General Clark said quietly. "You're going to withdraw your troops from our planet, you're going to leave our system, and you're going to think very carefully about whether you want to come back." "And if I refuse?" Vekilon asked. Clark smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Then you'll learn why humans are the only species that hunts for sport." Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in the emergency council chamber deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Around the table were the leaders of Earth's 47 colonies, their faces grim as they watched the battle reports coming in from around the galaxy. The news was spreading fast. Humanity had not just fought the Skarn, they had beaten them. Word of the failed invasion was reaching every surviving civilization in the galaxy. The response has been immediate. Admiral Chun reported from her position. At the tactical display, we're receiving messages from refugee fleets, resistance groups, even some governments that went into hiding when the Skarn conquered their worlds. Elena looked at the data streaming across her tablet. As humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, she had been studying the Galactic War for 3 years. But the information coming in now was unlike anything she had seen before. They want to know how we did it, she said quietly. Every message is asking the same question. How did humans defeat the Skarn when no one else could? President Martinez leaned forward in his chair. Can we tell them? Elena considered the question carefully. The truth was complicated. Humanity had not won because they were stronger or had better technology. They had won because they were different. The problem is that most species won't understand the answer, she said finally. To explain how we beat the Skarn, I have to explain what humans really are, and that might scare our new allies more than it encouraged them. Explain, Martinez said. Elena stood up and walked to the main display. With a few touches, she brought up a star map showing the evolutionary history of the major galactic species. Every other species in the galaxy evolved from apex predators, she began. The ethereals came from creatures that hunted in the deep oceans of their world. The Vorthak evolved from pack hunters that dominated their planet's largest continent. The Zephyrians were aerial predators that ruled their skies. She highlighted each species as she spoke, showing their evolutionary paths. Apex predators are efficient killers. They're strong, fast, and smart. They dominate through superior force. When they developed space travel and met other species, they naturally organized into hierarchies based on strength. That makes sense, Admiral Chun said. The strongest species rule, the weaker ones serve or get conquered. Exactly, Elena replied. It's a system that worked for millions of years. The Skarn were just the latest in a long line of apex predator species to dominate the galaxy. They were better killers than anyone else, so they won. She paused and brought up a new image on the screen. It showed the evolutionary tree of humanity. But humans are different. We didn't evolve as apex predators. We evolved as persistence predators. The room was quiet as Elena explained. Our ancestors were not the strongest or fastest creatures on Earth. They were not the best killers. But they had one ability that no other species possessed. They could outlast anything. She showed images of early humans hunting across the African plains. A human could chase an antelope for hours. The antelope was faster, but humans never stopped running. Eventually, the antelope would collapse from exhaustion. Then the humans would catch it. Persistent hunting, President Martinez said slowly. I've read about this. It shaped everything about us, Elena continued. Our bodies, our minds, our culture. We became the species that never gives up. When other predators would retreat or find easier prey, humans would keep going until they got what they wanted. Admiral Chun was studying the data on her tablet. So when the Skarn invaded Earth, they encountered something they had never seen before, Elena finished. A species that specializes in surviving impossible situations. A species that gets more dangerous when it's losing. She brought up the battle reports from Earth's defense. Look at the tactics we used. Kinetic weapons against energy shields. Urban warfare in prepared positions. Civilian populations supporting. Military operations? None of this follows the normal rules of galactic warfare. Because we don't know the rules, Admiral Chun said with understanding, or we don't care about them. The Skarn have conquered dozens of species by following the same pattern, Elena explained. Overwhelming force, demand surrender, destroy. Resistance. It works because most species recognize when they're beaten. They submit to avoid extinction. She pulled up footage from the fighting in New York City. But humans don't recognize defeat. When a human gets cornered, they don't surrender. They get creative. They start looking for ways to hurt the enemy, even if it means dying in the process. The council members watched as human fighters used improvised weapons and suicide tactics against the Skarn ground forces. The Skarn expected us to fight like civilized beings, Elena said. But humans aren't civilized the way other species understand civilization. We're survivors. We do whatever it takes to win. Is that why the other species are afraid of us? President Martinez asked. Elena nodded. The messages we're receiving are congratulatory, but there's fear underneath. They're grateful that someone finally stopped the Skarn, but they're worried about what humans might do next. She brought up excerpts from the alien communications. The ethereal remnant government says we fight like controlled madness. The Vorthok survivors call our tactics honorless but effective. The Zephyrians are asking if humans plan to conquer the galaxy ourselves. Do we? Admiral Chun asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Elena had been thinking about it since the battle ended. Humans had proven they could defeat the most powerful military force in the galaxy. What would they do with that knowledge? That's the scary part, she said finally. Other species conquer because they want to rule. They want resources, territory, slaves, but humans might conquer just because someone told them they couldn't. She pulled up historical data about human conflicts on Earth. Look at our history. We fought wars over religion, resources, politics, and pride, but we've also fought wars just to prove we could win them. Humans will fight impossible battles for no reason except that someone said they were impossible. President Martinez rubbed his temples. So the galaxy is afraid that we might attack them next? Some of them, Elena confirmed. But others are asking us to help them fight the remaining Skarn forces. They want to use our unconventional tactics against their oppressors. Admiral Chun looked up from her tablet. We're getting reports from across the galaxy. Resistance movements are copying our methods. Kinetic weapons, guerrilla warfare, civilian militias. It's spreading. Elena felt a mix of pride and concern. Humanity had given the galaxy hope by proving the Skarn could be beaten. But they had also unleashed something that might be harder to control. There's something else, she said. Our intelligence networks have been intercepting Skarn communications. They're calling emergency meetings, pulling back from active conquests. They're scared. Good, President Martinez said firmly. Maybe, Elena replied. But a scared Skarn empire might be more dangerous than a confident one. If they decide that humans are too dangerous to exist, they might try to destroy us completely rather than conquer us. She brought up the latest intelligence reports. They're pulling ships from across the galaxy, building the largest fleet in recorded history. If they come at us with everything they have, we might not be able to stop them. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had won the first battle by being unexpected. But the Skarn were learning. The next fight might be very different. How long do we have? Admiral Chun asked. Maybe 6 months, Elena replied. They need time to reorganize their forces and develop new tactics. But when they come back, they'll be ready for us. President Martinez stood up slowly. Then we need to be ready for them too. But first we need to decide what kind of species we want to be. He looked around the table at the other leaders. Elena is right. We could probably conquer the galaxy if we wanted to. Our tactics work against everyone, not just the Skarn. But do we want to become the new oppressors? Do we want to rule through fear? Admiral Chun spoke up. Maybe there's a third option. We could help other species learn to defend themselves. Teach them our tactics. Give them the tools to fight back against any future conquests. Elena considered this. It's risky. If we teach everyone to fight like humans, the galaxy could become a very violent place. It's already violent, Martinez pointed out. The difference is that now the victims might have a chance to fight back. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for immediate expansion to prevent future threats. Others wanted to return to isolation and let the galaxy solve its own problems. A few suggested that humans should become the galaxy's protectors, using their unique abilities to maintain peace. Finally, Elena stood up again. There's one more thing we need to consider. The psychological impact of what we've done goes beyond military tactics. She brought up a new set of data. For millions of years, the galaxy has operated on the principle that might makes right. The strongest species ruled because they could destroy anyone who opposed them. That system is breaking down. How so? Martinez asked. Because we've proven that strength isn't everything. A smaller, weaker species can defeat a larger, stronger one if they're willing to fight dirty enough. We've shown that the old rules don't work anymore. Elena highlighted several reports from across the galaxy. Slave species are rebelling against their masters. Weak systems are forming alliances against strong ones. The entire galactic order is starting to collapse, and it's because of what humans did to the Skarn. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just won a battle. They had accidentally started a revolution that was spreading across the entire galaxy. So what do we do? President Martinez asked. Elena looked at the data one more time. Before answering, we prepare for war. Because whether we want it or not, we've become the symbol of resistance for every oppressed species in the galaxy. The Skarn won't just come for us next time. They'll come for everyone who dares to hope that the strong can be defeated. She paused and met the eyes of every person in the room. The question isn't whether we'll fight again. The question is whether we'll fight alone or whether we'll have help. And that depends on what we do in the next 6 months. Outside the council chamber, Earth continued to prepare for the next battle. But now they knew they were fighting for more than just human survival. They were fighting for the idea that the weak could stand against the strong and win. It was the most human cause imaginable. 6 months later, the largest fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of the Sol system. Over 3,000 Skarn warships hung in space like a metal storm cloud, ready to rain destruction on the humans who had dared to resist them. War Master. Vekilon stood on the bridge of his new flagship, a massive dreadnought that was twice the size of his previous ship. Around him, his staff worked frantically to coordinate the attack. This time, there would be no mistakes. All fleet commanders, report status, he ordered. One by one, the responses came in. The Skarn had pulled ships from every corner of their empire. They had stripped garrisons from conquered worlds and recalled exploration fleets from the outer rim. Everything they had was here, ready to end the human threat once and for all. Sir, the humans have assembled their own fleet, his tactical officer reported. 120 ships. Vekilon smiled grimly. The humans had managed to gather forces from all their colonies, but they were still outnumbered 25-1. Even with their strange tactics, they could not overcome odds like that. And the other species? He asked. Several refugee fleets have joined them, sir. Maybe 30 ships total. The ethereal survivors, some Vorthok clans, a few others, nothing significant. Vekilon nodded. Some of the conquered species had sent their few remaining ships to help the humans. It was a futile gesture, but it would make their destruction more complete. When he finished here, there would be no one left to oppose Skarn rule. Begin the attack, he ordered. The Skarn fleet moved forward like a tide of metal and death. Their formation was perfect, their timing precise. They had learned from their previous encounter with the humans. This time, they would not be caught off guard, but as they approached the human fleet, something unexpected happened. The humans did not form up to meet them in battle. Instead, they scattered in all directions, breaking into small groups that moved in seemingly random patterns. Sir, the human fleet is dispersing, the tactical officer reported. They're not engaging us directly. Cowards, Vekilon snarled. They know they cannot win, so they run. Pursue them. Destroy them one by one. The Skarn fleet split up to chase the fleeing human ships. It was exactly what Vekilon had expected. The humans had fought bravely when they had no choice, but faced with overwhelming odds. They had chosen retreat over certain death, but then the first group of Skarn ships exploded. What happened? Vekilon demanded. Unknown, sir, his communications officer replied. The ships just detonated, all of them at once. Before Vekilon could respond, another group of his ships died in a flash of brilliant light. Then another, and another. Sir, there are mines, the tactical officer said in a shaking voice. The humans have mined the entire system, but sir, our sensors can't detect them. Decalan stared at the tactical display in horror. Red markers were appearing all over the map as his ships died by the dozens. Whatever the humans were using as mines, they were invisible to Skarn technology. How is that possible? He asked. The mines appear to be completely passive, sir, the sensor operator reported. No energy signatures, no metal components that we can detect. They're just sitting there until we get close, then they explode. Deep in space, the human mines did their deadly work. They were not made of metal or powered by fusion reactors. They were carved from asteroids and filled with chemical explosives. Technology so primitive that the Skarn sensors ignored them completely. Pull back, Decalan ordered. Reform the fleet. But pulling back was easier said than done. The mines were everywhere, scattered throughout the system in a pattern that forced the Skarn ships into narrow corridors where the human fleet was waiting. Admiral Sarah Chun watched the battle unfold from her command ship. The human fleet was tiny compared to the Skarn armada, but they had advantages that numbers could not overcome. Phase 2, she ordered. Hidden bases throughout the system came online. Weapons platforms that had been built into asteroids opened. Fire. Missile batteries that had been camouflaged as space debris launched their payloads. The humans had spent 6 months turning their entire star system into a trap. Sir, we're taking fire from multiple sources, the Skarn tactical officer reported. Weapons platforms hidden throughout the system. They're using kinetic projectiles again. Decalan watched in growing rage as his mighty fleet was torn apart by weapons that should not have been able to harm them. The humans were fighting like pirates, using ambush tactics and hidden weapons instead of meeting them in honorable combat. Return fire, he ordered. Destroy those platforms. But destroying the platforms was almost impossible. They were built into asteroids and powered by generators deep underground. When the Skarn tried to target them, they shut down and became invisible. When the aliens moved on, they came back online and resumed firing, and while the Skarn fleet was distracted by the hidden weapons, the human ships struck like wolves attacking a herd. Captain Marcus Rodriguez, now commanding a small task force, led his ships in a high-speed attack run against a group of Skarn cruisers. His destroyers were loaded with nuclear warheads and moving at maximum velocity. Remember, people, he said over the communications channel, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them hurt. The human ships rammed into the Skarn formation at near light speed. Most of them were destroyed instantly, but they took the enemy ships with them. In space combat, momentum was everything, and the humans were using it as a weapon. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships sacrificed themselves to take down larger Skarn vessels. Fighter pilots loaded their craft with explosives and flew suicide missions into enemy dreadnoughts. Every human death cost the Skarn multiple ships. Sir, we've lost over 800 vessels, the tactical officer reported to Decalan. The humans have lost maybe 30. Decalan could not believe what he was hearing. His fleet still outnumbered the humans, but the rate of loss was unsustainable. At this pace, the humans would destroy his entire armada before he could defeat them. Enough, he snarled. All ships, target the human homeworld. If we cannot defeat their fleet, we will destroy their planet. The remaining Skarn ships turned toward Earth, their massive weapons charging for a bombardment that would crack the planet's crust. But as they moved into position, they encountered the final part of the human defense plan. The orbital stations around Earth were not just defensive platforms. They were the largest kinetic weapons ever built. Using the planet's rotation and gravity wells, they could accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. Sir, massive energy spike from the human homeworld, the sensor operator reported. What kind of energy? Decalan asked. It's not energy, sir. It's kinetic. They're throwing rocks at us. The projectiles that rose from Earth's surface were the size of small buildings. They had been accelerated by electromagnetic catapults and gravity slings until they were moving at a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit the Skarn dreadnoughts, they went through them like bullets through paper dot in 30 seconds. The human planet defense system destroyed more Skarn. ships than had been lost in the previous hour of fighting. Decalan stared at the tactical display as red markers disappeared from his screen. Half his fleet was gone. The humans had not just defeated him, they had humiliated him. His communications officer spoke up nervously. "Sir, incoming transmission." "From the human admiral." "Put it through," Decalan said. Admiral Chin's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. "War Master Decalan," she said calmly, "I'm calling to offer you terms for surrender." "Surrender?" Decalan laughed bitterly. "I still have over 1,000 ships. You have less than 100. "Actually," Chun replied, "you have about 600 ships left, and they're surrounded." Decalan looked at his tactical display again. Chun was right. While he had been focused on the battle around Earth, human ships had been moving into position around his fleet. They had used the confusion of the fight to surround the entire Skarn armada. "Those ships came from the other human colonies," Chun explained. "We've been planning this for 6 months. Every move you made, every formation you used, we were ready for it." She leaned forward in her chair. "You see, War Master, you made the same mistake that every other species in the galaxy makes. You assume that because we're young and small, we must be stupid. But humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We know how to plan for battles that haven't happened yet." Decalan felt the trap closing around him. The humans had not just prepared to defend their system. They had prepared to destroy his entire fleet. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Complete withdrawal from human space," Chun replied. "Release of all prisoners taken from conquered worlds. And a promise that the Skarn will never again attack a species that has not attacked you first." "Impossible," Decalan said. "The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species." Chun smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "War Master, let me explain something about humans that you still don't understand. We are not an inferior species. We are a survivor species. And survivors don't negotiate, they dictate terms." She gestured to something off screen, and the tactical display showed new contacts appearing throughout the system. "Those are ships from 17 different species," Chun continued. "They've been hiding in our outer system, waiting for this moment. Every species you've conquered, every world you've destroyed, they all sent someone to be here today." Decalan looked at the display in growing horror. Hundreds of ships from dozens of different species were revealing themselves. The humans had not just been preparing to fight the Skarn. They had been building an alliance. "You have 2 choices," Chun said quietly. "Surrender now and live to rebuild your empire on more peaceful terms, or fight to the end and watch every Skarn in this system die for nothing." Decalan looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. The choice was simple: surrender or extinction. "I need guarantees," he said finally. "You're not in a position to demand guarantees," Chun replied. "But I'll give you one anyway. If you surrender now and agree to our terms, the Skarn Empire can continue to exist. Your people can rebuild, your culture can survive. All you have to give up is the idea that might makes right." She paused and met his eyes through the screen. "But if you choose to fight, then humanity will hunt down every Skarn ship, every Skarn colony, every Skarn leader until your species is nothing but a memory. And we'll do it with the help of every species you've ever wronged." The silence on the bridge stretched for long minutes. Finally, Decalan spoke. "The Skarn hegemony surrenders." The words felt like poison in his mouth, but he knew they were. The only chances people had to survive? Admiral Chun nodded. "Very good. You'll be escorted to the edge of the system. The liberation of conquered worlds will begin immediately." As the transmission ended, Decalan slumped in his command chair. The greatest military force in galactic history had been defeated by a species that most of the galaxy had never heard of 6 months ago. But as his ships began their retreat, he finally understood what had happened. The humans had not won because they were stronger or smarter. They had won because they were more stubborn. They had refused to accept defeat even when it seemed certain. And that, Decalan realized, made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The war was over. But for the first time in millions of years, the strong no longer ruled by default. The age of human influence had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.